parenting isn't about making you feel good. It's about doing the right thing for your child. Now, it seems to me that over the past few generations, parents have defaulted to the path of least resistance as a parenting approach. And they've done this from both the perspective of their kids and themselves. Now, what I mean by that is when having to make a decision for their kids, these parents tend to pick the solution, the path that is easiest for their kids. The thinking is that if we, as parents, make our kids' lives easier, everyone's better off. It's easier for the kids, it's easier for the parents. On the parental side, the decision-making process goes something like this. How can I handle this issue, solve this problem, in a way that makes everyone happier? And by everyone, they generally mean themselves. Now, stated in another way, how can I deal with this kid problem I'm having that is easiest for me? They believe when your answer to a problem causes no ripples on the water, no backlash, no resistance, it must be the best choice. But this is a disastrous approach so many parents have defaulted to because, again, it's the easiest. It has the least blowback, the most minimal repercussions. And that is poor decision making in action. When I talk about independence, confidence, and good decision making, of course, first and foremost, I'm talking about raising your kids to be those things. Because being those things means much more than just being those things. Let me explain that. What ultimately led me to those three characteristics was talking with an artist I knew, a friend of mine. He happened to mention the primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. What struck me was when he said that all the colors are derived from those three. And that seemed crazy to me. Those three colors are the foundation of all other colors. For artists out there, I realize I'm oversimplifying this to some degree. But if you Google primary colors, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. From those three, all others are created. In my head, I considered all the other colors as subordinate, secondary to the primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. Now, what do the primary colors have to do with my ICD parenting approach? Now, stick with me. When we think about strong kids, strong, well-balanced people in general, words like independence and confidence probably come to mind, but also words like optimistic, self-aware, tenacious, adaptable, reliable, self-sufficient, commitment, discipline, a whole bunch of other things. When I looked at this long list of characteristics my wife and I hoped to develop in our son, the conversation about primary colors popped into my head. What were the primary colors? The three primary characteristics that all the others were derived from. Which three characteristics were primary and which were secondary? And after staring at that list for a long time, independence, confidence, and good decision-making skills rose to the top. In my mind, if you possess independence, that meant you were self-sufficient, self-aware. You understood commitment and the discipline required to achieve a goal. If you were confident, it meant that you were tenacious and adaptable. You were optimistic and reliable and able to handle setbacks with strength and dignity. And of course, last but definitely not least, once you develop good decision-making skills, well, the sky's the limit. That meant you fully understood the value of honesty, especially being honest about who and what you are. You possessed the strength of mind to recognize when something isn't going the way you want, and you're smart enough to right the boat, change the path to more likely realize your goal, your objective. It meant you were practical and could understand and accept your shortcomings and account for them in your decision making. It meant that you were capable of seeing beyond your personal desires and could see many of the potential outcomes from your decision. See the forest for the trees, the big picture. When you're raising your kids to be an ICD adult, what you're doing is developing all those other characteristics on the journey to independence, confidence, and good decision making. In my mind, you have to already possess all those other characteristics to reach ICD status. Now, let's go back to the title of this video. Parenting isn't about making you feel good, mom and dad. It's about doing the right thing for your kids. And the vast majority of the time, the easiest path, the path of least resistance, is not the path to raising an ICD adult. I always try and give some real life examples of what my wife and I did to explain whatever point I'm trying to make in these videos. So I'm going to revisit a few things I mentioned in past videos and what we did raising our son that led him to his current ICD status. And I've mentioned these in earlier videos, but I won't go over again. The first one, the 3 strikes you're out rule. I gave my young son 2 chances to misbehave, and then on the 3rd failing, I'll call it, we were done. Just imagine how lousy it was to leave a friend's birthday party early because he got out of hand. It's lousy for everyone. It's definitely not the path of least resistance. Now, to be fair, my wife and I allowed his behavior to adjust to the setting, the time, the place. Things we had no problem with him doing at a kid's party would be entirely unacceptable at a grocery store or a restaurant eating dinner out as a family. A party at a bouncy place, sure, run around, yell, be a little crazy, no problem. Hit someone, throw something, shove someone aside to be next in line, no. Only 2 chances to screw up, and then we're gone. Too many parents won't take that final step, leaving, going home, as the ultimate punishment. And that was the ultimate punishment. Neither my wife or I ever scolded our son on the way home or when we finally got home after a situation like that. The punishment was already in play. We never had to raise our voice. We never had to make some silly fake threat. He lost the privilege of being somewhere he really wanted to be. That's effective punishment. Now, some parents, like I said, will pull their child aside and warn them or threaten them, but they never follow up on those threats. We all know kids figure that stuff out quick. It's useless. It's just as useless as pulling your son or daughter aside and gently explaining to them why their behavior is inappropriate. A 4 or 5-year-old is going to listen to you, contemplate their poor decisions, and choose a better approach. Come on. That's not parenting. That's pretending to be a parent. Remember, parenting isn't about making you feel good. It's about doing the right thing for your child. Second example, I've spoken about in a different past video, when my son ran back into the street in front of an oncoming car to save his favorite ball. Did I really want to light into a 5-year-old and make him cry? No, I didn't. But what was the alternative? Talking to him gently? Patiently explaining to him why that was a terrible decision? I don't think so. As his father, and accepting that one of the #1 highest priority jobs I have as his father, as a parent, is to protect him. Because let's face it, a 5-year-old isn't very good at making decisions to protect themselves. It's my job to do that for him. And perhaps more importantly, to teach him how to eventually protect himself. So I lit into him. I lit into him to make sure he remembered that running in front of an oncoming car is a bad thing, a very bad thing. It was lousy for both him and me. I hated making my son cry. But as I said in that earlier video, he learned that lesson and then threw it back in my face when I, as a 40-something-year-old man, forgot that walking in front of an oncoming car is stupid. Over 67,000 kids are injured every year in pedestrian accidents. My son wasn't one of those 67,000. And I did what I believed to be right in scaring him regarding the danger and educating him that it is to walk in front of a car. When I made the decision on how to best teach my son that lesson, I did not prioritize how that decision would make me feel. I prioritized how effective that lesson would be for my son, how likely it was for him to remember that lesson, learn it. I saw so many parents over the years whose kids were wildly misbehaving or doing things that put them in real danger of injury, And so often, those parents either ignored what was going on or merely spoke to their little ones about why what they were doing was bad or dangerous or thoughtless. As a parent, you've got to prioritize doing the right thing, doing what is in the best interest of your child over your own concerns about how that might make you feel. Now, here's one aspect of this that I find really upsetting when I see it, and I've seen it many times. When a parent doesn't teach, doesn't discipline, doesn't punish, whatever you want to call it, when a parent doesn't do that with their child because that parent is more concerned with what others in the vicinity might think of them. Every parent has probably seen this, especially with parents of young kids. Little Tommy is definitely out of hand, but I don't want to make a scene. I don't want to embarrass Tommy or myself in front of others. That approach is terrible. It's a disaster. I'm going to recommend a book here that I think you should read. It was published in 1982, titled The 1 Minute Manager. The main message of that book was threefold. Two of those messages are relevant for parents: 1 minute praise and 1 minute reprimands. The goal here is the timing. If you see your child do something good, something really thoughtful or kind or smart, praise them as immediately after the act as you can. In effect, catch them doing the good thing and immediately offer praise. Now, the same goes for the opposite. Catch them doing something bad and immediately reprimand them. That's right. Right then and there, that timing is what's so important. If you wait until later, later that afternoon, later that evening, the impact of the praise or punishment is lost, at the very least drastically diminished. It's the immediacy, that instantaneous response that matters. That's what's so important. If you prioritize your feelings or someone else's feelings over being an effective parent, a responsive parent, then you are not parenting properly, not effectively. Parents are people, I get it. But in my opinion, parents are more than people, because a person is just responsible for themselves. But a parent is responsible, entirely responsible, for another human being that is incapable of being responsible for themselves. Raising an independent, confident, good decision maker means, to a large degree, swallowing your pride, your biases, your preferences, even your dignity at times. It means that you are willing, more than willing, to make the sacrifices necessary to prepare your child for life as an adult. Prepare them to live their best life. Your feelings should not and should never supersede your responsibility to do what is in your child's best interests. Thanks for listening.